I know it was talked about, I believe, that it'd just be out in the field, kind of, but,
Well, actually, one of the conditions
say.
on the staff report is that parking needs to be provided, and that parking can't interfere with stormwater and stormwater treatment drain. So it's more than likely that they would have to do something of a permeable paver or something like that in a parking lot.
I
It
guess,
takes away the beauty of just parking in the field. That makes it cool to park in the.
one of the things that has occurred to me as we spoke earlier at our meeting and this, the special permits, as far as I know, have just been in the downtown area, and I'm not sure they were for, we were saying that it's possible in the R1 and the ER zone. I'm not sure that something ought to be looked at a little bit, a little bit more carefully, because the special permit is something that is not just if you meet the zoning ordinance, you get it. In some other cases, now, we've talked a lot about rezonings tonight, but on some other things, if it is zoned a certain way and you fulfill the requirements, then, that should tell you that you would expect to be approved. This is a little bit different in the sense that it is, there's discretion there. And in that sense, seeing the one earlier and this, that have now given me pause to think about this a little bit more. It's a little bit different downtown where there's so much commercial around, and I'm rethinking about this out in some areas that are not that way. So right now, I won't support it, but I really think it might be something that we need to look at more carefully.
Is there a chance we could have a restriction on that, the possibility of having 7 events, 7 nights a week? Could it be restricted to 4 nights a week?
See,
Or
this is a question, I don't know, if you get a special permit, is it good for everything? I don't know. I mean, I do
We
not
can
know.
set those conditions,
You
isn't that
can
right?
set, that's the purpose of a special permit. You can
Yeah,
set
so-
conditions.
So if that's an appropriate condition to set,
he's
then
gonna
we have
say.
that
He's
right to
gonna-
set that within this permit. If you want to make that a condition of approval.
would ask the applicant to, what's your thoughts on that, and is that something you could volunteer, or?
I think I'd be exhausted if there were 7 events every week.
I would think so, too. But for the.
I really only see the events happening on the weekends, maybe Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I don't see it, one of the things I didn't say before was I really don't see it interfering with heavy traffic times, because most of them will be held in the evenings when it's not so bad. I am not opposed to you putting restrictions on it, just don't take away my Saturdays.
No, I agree with you.
And quite frankly, I have a lot easier time voting for this than I do all this other. We've just, we proved, 7 million more homes tonight? I'm telling you, I do. Because we have the option, if they don't live up to the requirements or the conditions of the
Right,
special
we can
permit, it goes away.
Right.
Oh, wait, we've never taken one back yet, so
Yeah,
let's
well-
don't say, but I know what you're
But
talking about.
I'm just saying, we have the power to whether we do it or not.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
All right,
just
so
saying.
do we want to set any restrictions on this, or at this point, we are,
Mr. Chairman, the restrictions will go to BOMA. BOMA is the final decision.
Okay.
okay,
good.
so it's recommendations
It
for
is
restrictions?
recommendations to
Oh,
BOMA.
good, good.
Okay, right. As of right now, the motion is just for a special permit without special restrictions. Any other discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Let's have
Vote
it.
no, I'm voting no.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, Ms. Peterson votes no. Motion still passes. All right, we are at item 37, Eddie Lane Industrial Office.
And I was afraid it was going to be like this whenever I said this, but I did want to bring this out to look at.
Okay. Staff, this is the site plan of 105,000 square feet.
Staff recommends approval with conditions.
Okay. Anyone in the audience other than the applicant that wants to speak to this item?
I know.
Is there anyone representing the applicant that's held out until this point in time? enjoying the entertainment for the evening.
I'm Chris Curtis, and I am the head of development for the developer, represent the developer of the project, and Andrew Walters from Little John Engineering is our expert that has helped design the civil site so that we can comply fully with the City of Franklin requirements.
Okay, all right. Before we have discussion, Ms. Peterson, let's get a motion.
Move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion, Ms. Peterson?
No, I wanted to have it brought out because this is a site that is absolutely vacant right now. It's on Eddie Lane. Probably the concern that I would have is about the traffic, because the rest of it.
This is a very, very low-density use. This is going to house computer servers with very, very few employees and visitors. In fact, the parking that we're providing is vastly more adequate than what actually is going to be used. There'll be a full-time security guard in each one of those little pods, 24/7. Other than that, there'll be a building engineer, and then other than that, occasional comings and goings of people, and a small smattering of office staff sometimes, but most of the time not. So it'll be a very, very low-density impact on the area.
This is light industrial, but there are other uses on this road, a lot of residential on this road, too. And that was another reason that I just wanted it to be out for the public to see.
This is the old Aerotech, is that what this
Plastech,
is?
yes.
Yeah.
Johnson Controls Plastech.
Oh, whatever, yeah, okay.
It was an old.
There's something else
nasty
before
There was something before then,
manufacturing
some before
facility
then.
that-
Yeah.
Right, okay.
And this will be, it'll be a LEED Gold facility and very environmentally friendly and modern facility.
Thank you.
All right.
Well, I was just happy to see something going in.
As I said, I thought it was worthy, worthy to look at.
And before, there was a lot of traffic with the manufacturing
Right,
moving.
it wasn't Kusan.
A lot of workers there, Kusan.
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 Kusan. Thank you.
Plastics,
All right, any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Motion passes. Item 40, ordinance 2012-27, to be entitled an ordinance to amend Chapter 4, Section 4.1 of the City of Franklin zoning ordinance to permit outdoor storage at government facilities.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is a text amendment for CI zoning district to allow for outdoor storage. Currently, CI requires that it be fully screened and undercover. We're asking that it be fully screened but not undercover because we realize the government facilities do have a need for some outdoor storage of trucks, of certain materials, and that in the many CI zones, that's already happening.
Okay, thank you. Anyone in the audience that doesn't live, work, or whatever in the city want to comment? All right, I see none.
Move for approval.
Is there a motion? Move for approval for Ms. Allen? Is there a second? Who seconded it?
And
Door?
it is civic and institutional, so it doesn't mean that everything that's that is a government agency, so,
Right,
yes.
Right, okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. Item 41, ordinance 2012-12, to be entitled ordinance to amend Chapter 3, Section 3.4.4 and Section 3.4.5 of the City of Franklin zoning ordinance, regulating historic structures within the floodway and floodway fringe overlay districts.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to ask Kelly to give you a background and tell you what staff is requesting this evening. Kelly has done a lot of work on the floodway fringe and working very closely with historic zoning on preserving historic buildings within that overlay district. So Kelly, if you would.
Okay.
The city has held a series of public meetings about the zoning impacts in the floodway and floodway fringe overlay districts for non-residentially zoned properties. This ordinance text amendment is the first of several that will come before you. This amendment addresses the use limitations for historic buildings in the floodplain and broadens the allowed uses to include any of the permitted uses within the base zoning district in that historic structure. It applies to any historic structure within the HPO that is considered contributing to or eligible for the National Register of Historic Places. And there are about 6 structures that we know are contributing. and about half a dozen others that may be eligible for, but that's up to the State Historic Preservation Office to make that determination. The National Flood Insurance Program exempts historic structures from floodplain management requirements, and staff believes this amendment is in keeping with their intent to preserve historic structures for the future by allowing them to be used according to their base zoning. Staff recommends a favorable recommendation to the BOMA.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion for approval?
So, second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Ms. Peterson?
I'm going to be, I am not in favor of putting in all the allowable uses in the underlying zone, because we're talking about the historic structures here. The next step will be for all the structures, and I absolutely do not support anything about putting dwellings, extra dwellings in there. And there are several other things too that I cannot support on this at all. I think that the history of flooding in Franklin indicates that we should be more careful, not encourage anything else.
Okay. Any other discussion, Ms. Allen?
Well, maybe I'm missing, okay, so help me here. I thought what we were saying, because it says that right now, if you have a non-conformist use, that's non-residential in FFO, FWO, that after 30 months of being abandoned, that, that non-conforming use goes away. Aren't we just basically saying that, but those structures that are historical structures, that doesn't apply to, we're not saying we're going to add to the buildings in the floodway. Is that not what this is?
That's right. It addresses just historic
Right.
structures and the uses that are allowed within those.
Right. So we're not
But
adding.
no, the next step is going to be though.
Oh, you said, okay,
Yeah,
but I'm missing for this one in particular. I
I'm
got
just,
you.
I'm just
All right.
saying,
I
this
got
is, this is the first step, and I know where it's going,
Okay.
because I did go attend those meetings.
I got you.
And I'm just saying, I absolutely cannot encourage other use. I mean, they have the right, for the non-residential uses to go back in and reestablish that. I do agree that on some things, I think our uses are so narrowly defined that we can make some accommodation that way. But to say that every allowable use in the underlying district is acceptable is not acceptable to me at all. As I say, I certainly feel that, we've got a use that says the only thing that you could put back in there is a dry cleaner or beauty shop or one other thing, I think. I mean, I think that idea is too restrictive. I mean, there are plenty of other similar uses that would be acceptable, but whenever you start saying all the uses in the underlying district, I cannot support that at all. And I feel very, very strongly about doing that type of thing in an area that's been flooded, and more than once on many of these, more than once on many of them.
Okay. Any other comments? All right, seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Ms. Peterson
And
votes no.
I want to ask a question. Is this the first of several proposals that are coming before us? I want to say to the Planning Commission, please look at these carefully. I can remember not that many years ago when there was a special plan for some areas in Central Franklin, and they were all for, they say, oh, let's put residential uses out here. And I said, if there's anything that you don't want to build new things in, it would be residential uses. And this is not just speaking to this, but I mean, there were many people who were saying, oh, let's do this, let's just put attached residential down here, down on Hillsborough Road. And I said, that's where the danger is. But what I'm saying is, in theory, it sounds like we're just being nice to everyone. But in reality, whenever you encourage people to put money into developing things that have been flooded more than one time since I've been here, and I've got pictures on some of them that have been flooded numerous times since I've been here. Please, I really am saying, please think very, very, very long and hard about this. As I say, I feel extremely strongly about it.
If I may, there's a reason why we separated historic structures out from non-residential structures, which you may see at a later date. First of all, there's a different set of issues involved with historic structures, but 4 out of 6 of these structures were most likely constructed as residential structures that are used as office at this time. The only other 2 structures that are non-residential that we know are contributing are the old jail and the old jail, which most likely aren't residential in nature. But the other 4 are, and so that's why we separated them out, one of the reasons, and
Well,
all of the uses are on the list.
But I'm saying this is just the beginning, and that is the thing that I'm saying. And also it says in here that, that you can add, you can do with them, as I say, even the ones that are no longer residential. And as I say, it's just, I don't want to, I feel very strongly about the city of Franklin not going in that direction.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ordinance 2012-05 to be entitled an ordinance to establish section 2.4.11 and amend section 5.6.4 of the Franklin zoning ordinance, which establishes requirements for fences and walls.
Mr. Chairman, as you remember, this was deferred from the last meeting to get additional information. Chris Bridgewater is here tonight to provide you with some additional information regarding the permit part of this this text amendment, and I'd ask that Chris come up and speak to us at this point in time.
Okay.
Okay, well, I'll speak from here, but I would just very briefly like to make some comments about that. I will always favor a proactive approach to enforcement. That means we have the conversation about constructing something before it's built so that we can prevent costly mistakes and errors. And we don't have to approach the homeowner with tearing what they just built down and then reconstructing again if they wish to put it back. That's what a permit would do. And I believe this is going to provide value and a greatly needed service for fences to prevent those costly errors. That's basically all that I really wanted to convey, is that I strongly support a proactive approach to enforcement.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I add that the permit cost would be $35, which doesn't get anywhere close to covering the cost of what Building and Neighborhood Services would provide an applicant and possibly save them quite a bit of money at the back end.
To that point, could you briefly, before we have discussion, can you briefly discuss what Building and Neighborhood Services would do in this process?
Certainly. The biggest piece to this is obviously having the conversation with the homeowner. It's having them put down on paper where their proposed fence is and then discussing with them their options in installing that fence, going over the materials, heights, where it's located, all of these things that they need to know on the front end so that they can convey this information to their fencing company. And of course, we're going to approach the fencing company as well, all the companies we can, with this information. But, once the fence is built, once it's constructed, it's, the only thing you can do is tear it down, and the materials are mostly not reusable. And so it's almost a total loss when you have to correct a fence. So it's all on the proactive side. It's all to get the customer in the door to have that conversation.
Okay, all right, thank you. Well, let's have a motion, then we'll have discussion.
Move for approval. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I got an issue.
I'll go last.
I got an issue. When I asked, I think I made the motion to defer, and the reason I did, I wanted to be educated on a lot of the issues regarding fences. I know that most of our new neighborhoods have got covenant restrictions,
Right.
and they are vigorously enforced if there's a violation, and before they can even put a fence up, they have to bring that site plan to the architectural review to have that approved. And, man, they have to put up a deposit, and there's all sorts of requirements. Now, as I read through some of this, I should have read this a little bit earlier, and, but I apologize. I feel like in our workshop that we're going to have in about a week, this could be a good topic that, hopefully could take 15 to 30 minutes and conclude. But, City of Franklin allows all these smaller lots, and if you require fences not to obstruct stormwater flow, then you're going to get a bunch of fences that are pulled inside of these small lots with a lot of property between fences, that a lot of people are going to see that as an alley as an effect. And next thing you know, you're going to have kids running up and down the alleys. Where a lot of people want a fence from their property line to their property line. So it's an issue. Brentwood doesn't allow fences to be in the PUD, the drainage easement, so you have to pull them in. In some cases, they look better when they're pulled in. They require some trees planted on the outside. So I just think there's a practical approach to this particular request, and I'm not against it. I just want to know more about it, and I want to help weed through the issues that'll come up in the future.
I would like to submit that that what's before, what we're presenting now, basically presents just lays out a process for permitting, and it also talks about a couple of height changes, and it talks about the opacity of the fences in the front yard, allowing a different kind of fence in the front yard than we had previously allowed. The vast majority of these fencing regulations are already codified.
Okay. All right, any other comments?
I just have to ask one question. How many fences have been required to be torn down?
I know of one currently.
But, over the years.
And I think that's a product of trying to work with people once the fence is up and possibly in the wrong place. But we could possibly save that time and effort by having a permit on the front end.
All right.
Okay.
Before we have our conclusion.
Number one, guys, first of all, this infuriates me. I just tell you, we discussed this ad nauseum 3-4 years ago. Here we go again, but I'm going to say the same thing here and at the Board of Mayor and Alderman if it gets there. Number one, we just had the director of planning say that this $35 won't nearly cover the amount of work that we're going to be doing. By the way, when I was over codes and fire and all of that, these guys were running and getting so much, they barely had time to do any site plan checks or do any of that. We have staff that was overworked. So we're going to charge $35, which doesn't cover the cost. So what will it be in 5 years? $135? See, because eventually somebody's budget's going to get tight and that's going to go up. And I'm here to tell you, I'm speaking for those folks who don't live in the Carlisles and those other places of the world. Guys, we're taking a shotgun to shoot a gnat. Those places where we had problems where people did obstruct water and all that, tear it down. Dummy, you shouldn't have done that. I think we have a very small problem that was brought up by an alderman, and now we have a 3 to 4 page ordinance to describe not only how high the fence will be, what color it'll be. I happen to like red. Who says it has to be black or green? We rail every day about too much government. My goodness, guys. The other thing, a drawing, so will the drawing have to be done by an architect? Oh, it may not be this year, but next year, will it be? We got to show where it's going to be. We got to show you measurements too. Quite frankly, in my lifetime, you'd go property line to property line. And if you don't know where your property line is, your neighbor complains, you tear it down. Tough. Another, it goes on and opaque or not. Guys, I just think this is overkill. And I think there are a lot more things. We should be spending the resources we're going to spend on checking fences and solving these traffic problems on the west side of Franklin. I don't like this at all. Next year, I guess it'll be what color cars can be parked in your driveway. Pretty is fine, but guys, we got to be practical too. And it requires somebody to pay $35 to have somebody tell them it's okay to put a fence around their property and then tell them what side it has to be coated on and what color. I absolutely do not like it. And I know I'm preaching to the choir, but I'll say this to the Board of Mayor and Alderman too. And I want every one of them to be able to say yes or no to this. I just think it's, Now, let me just stop. I think it's ridiculous, and I will vote no here and encourage others to do so either. Let's do something important.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
You know, there again, a deferment versus a vote, what the staff, would they want to see a deferment tonight, or they want to go ahead and get a vote out of the way?
Mr. Franks, if we were to defer, we would want to know what it is we need to bring back to you in order to solidify our answers to you.
Well, I appreciate it, Ms. Powers. You did answer one question, that was the price, the permit amount. And, you know, that's not a deal breaker at all, so. But I think there are other questions, and that has been raised tonight. So, but I'm not going to be able to vote for it tonight the way it is. But I'd prefer to defer it if it, you know, if y'all think that we can have this in a discussion with the workshop.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, if we could, is there a way that, and I've asked Shauna as well, if we could separate the issue of the wrought iron fence from the permit and possibly deal with the permit at a different time, but pass the wrought iron fence in lieu of chain link or in addition to chain link in the front yard?
I mean, we go down to every item here if we want to, and
No, but I don't know exactly what they're talking about,
I'm
but I
not
know
either.
that there's been a fence that I've known about that turned out to look really good, that was in the front yard.
Yes.
And some of us were not sure about that whenever it occurred.
Yes. Yeah. Currently, chain link fences are allowed in the front yard, but wrought iron fences are not. And since they have similar opacities, we believe that they both should be treated equally and be allowed.
I mean, we use black aluminum everywhere.
Right, and that's what we're
Okay.
talking
Why
about.
would you not allow something that looks better than?
Well, and that's why we wanted to bring that, at least that piece forward and
Okay.
possibly deal with the permit at another time.
So just say to
Okay.
add that as
The use
a,
of a run-on fence?
I think you would, if you wanted to do that, it looks like you would amend to approve only section 3, leaving out section 1 and section 2.
Okay. I'll be glad to entertain a motion to that effect if someone
and
wants to bring that.
that would be on 5.6.4.
Yeah, 5.6.4 plus the table 5.8.
Some
And of
editing
course,
on-
section 3, which actually should be section 4 at the bottom, has to also be approved, which is taking its effect upon passing. But that would need to be renumbered accordingly. If that's something you want to do, or if you want to defer.
Say that again, take out what now?
You would only, what you would make a motion to approve only section 3 and section 4. And for us to renumber accordingly when it goes to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen.
Section 4 that is shown as section 3.
Right, section 3 would now, yeah.
Section 3B.
Right, Mr.
Wait a
Mayor?
minute, I'm looking at the wrong thing.
Because section 1 talks about fence permits. It just adds the paragraph F, which you wouldn't need. And then section 2 actually puts the fence permitting in. So all you would want is section 3, which talks about completely opaque fence or provide in paragraph D, and then paragraph 2.
I'm looking at two different things. I got 2.411, I'm confused. Then I've got a 5.6.4 that has some, then a 2.4.11 that has.
5 through 7. If you look at the numbers down at the very bottom
Right.
where Brenda numbered them, I think that's what we're talking about.
So 5 and 7?
5, 6.
5, 6, and
Okay.
7. But not section 2 or section 1.
Well, let me ask you this, what if you,
Yeah, it's kind of hard to amend something on the fly like this.
Would that may be a reason
what if we
to,
required a permit just without the specifications of of the fence? What if we just said, look, permits required, I think neighborhood services ought to have the ability to not have a problem after the fact. And so if you get a permit for that fence, at least they're stamping off that you've showed them where the fence is going, it's inside the property line, and they don't run the risk of a neighbor calling them 6 months later and the fence got built a foot over off the wrong property, you know? And so I think as far as neighborhood services, it's a good thing in one respect to save themselves a lot of grief, you know, after the fact, even if it is in a subdivision that CCRCs have, and the architectural review is approved, but.
Do you want to cut this up and bring it back? It's two different.
Yeah,
issues.
I think so.
It's easier than to do it on the fly.
I agree, that.
Let's just defer this.
Just, I withdraw my motion for approval.
Well, all you need,
Okay.
you just need somebody to defer. That would defeat any motion you had.
I don't want to defeat it, I mean, I'm for the
No, but bring it back in
neighborhood
pieces,
services
bring
to
it back in
get
pieces.
what they
Would that
like and
be
what
a-
they need for,
I don't think we've got a consensus enough to vote on what we've got. Why don't
Scott,
we-
you made a motion
But
to
what you
defer?
wanted was
Motion
3
to
and 4,
defer for the
basically.
next,
Well,
Hold on,
all, but.
to July.
Scott, can we,
Can we
Why
still
don't we-
separate it?
Yeah,
Can't help them.
let's
Hold on
talk
one
about
second.
this again before we do this.
Straighten us out,
We have the
Bernie.
same thing.
can we,
Jeez.
Good evening, if I may.
go ahead, Vernon.
Just, maybe we'll put this back on a work session. I mean, the issue that we had with the discrepancy of a chain link fence and a imitation or wrought iron fence not being allowed currently, we've gotten over that. And that's a small issue in the whole scheme of things. I think what Chris had brought up is a philosophical approach to being proactive. And Commissioner Allen also mentions an approach as well. But we can bring this back to a work session sometime when we have some of the aldermen there too, because I think, without speaking for Chris, but certainly and definitely supporting a proactive approach, our recommendation would still be to include the permit in something that you all choose to regulate. So let's bring that back because it's a bigger issue and it's some of the problems that Chris and his team and others, inspectors in the city approach to from a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I would agree. There's enough discussion that if we just defer it to the next meeting, we're going to have the same issue and we're going to be chasing our tails. So let's defer it to a workshop, and then that gives us a chance to discuss it. Again.
Is that a motion?
Right.
Is that a motion?
Not for me.
Oh.
So I move that we defer this to sometime where we can have it in a workshop,
It needs to be to a date, so let's.
90 days.
Wait, do you want 90 days or do you want to the next workshop?
Can you get it on work next,
Meeting July.
to the July meeting? I'll defer to the July meeting,
July workshop.
Workshop,
The workshop.
please.
workshop.
So it'll be the month after.
Well, a month after the
Please.
July workshop.
Then we can have fireworks.
It'll be a little late.
We're going to have some, we will.
All right. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We have adjournment. I'll see y'all.